Oh, oh, that's my picture. And that's my screen. Okay, well, I guess we're just going to try and give this a try. It's almost 30 frames per second. Will not record, but YouTube will record, so that should save some CPU. It's not at the utmost settings for my kilobits per second. Why is it so low? Okay, well, we'll try. Let's see what we get. Let's give us a new user account. Wow, this is really freaking slow. What is going on here? Okay. Our lovely dev account. This computer should be able to handle this. It's not that old. It definitely seems to not be able to. Not receiving enough video. What does that even mean? Encoding overloaded. Consider turning down video settings or using a faster encoding preset. Well, why are you encoding it anyways? Just send it up. I have internet. Such a good idea gone all bad. Okay, well, we're not going to be doing too much of intensive stuff on this stream, so I'm just going to go ahead. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Front End Live. My name is James Wilkinson. I am a front-end developer professionally for the last 12 years and educating myself here through, in school and part-time gigs for about, college is 2 years, 6, 8 years, for 8 years before that. So I've been doing this since the dawn of the internet, pretty much. It's my goal with these to show you live, unedited, what it is like to be a front-end developer, take you through my thought process as someone who is more of a senior developer. So I currently am a staff developer. Titles at this end of things are very different. It's really just the amount of coding versus the amount of architecting you do, and how much thought you then also put into things that matter for the business, such as scalability of teams, etc. at that size. So today we're going to get a new environment set up. So my computer has been freshly wiped, literally, figuratively, and literally. I have cleaned off all of the dev stickers that I had on the back of it, and I reinstalled the hard drive. I'm now running Mac OS X Big Sur. So let's dive in here. You can see here my Mac that I'm running here is not the most powerful. It's a tiny MacBook Air running on Big Sur, 1 gigahertz iCore processor, 8 gigs of RAM. Ideally, a dev machine should have 16 gigs of RAM, as well as, max it out as much as you can, just like a gaming PC. because the more servers you can run locally, the better your dev will be. As front end, you normally have to communicate to backends. We're probably going to end up doing that through hosting these services locally or calling APIs elsewhere because this computer is not very powerful. So let's jump in. The first thing we need to do is open terminal. So the terminal on the Mac, when you're freshly installed, is not going to have the correct version of Git installed. It's only going to have its local version that it needs. So we're just going to type Git, and you'll see here we get a note about no developer tools were installed. So now we're going to install the developer tools. Unless you need Xcode, don't install Xcode. It will take several hours to install. This instead is just the developer tools that your computer is going to need in order to have permissions to do things like Git and install Git. So we're going to download that software. In the meantime, let's get our Chrome set up. So I have a new version of Chrome here. And let's go to Extensions. So we're primarily going to be doing React development. So we want the React Dev Tools as well as the Redux Dev Tools. So I'm going to search for React Dev Tools Chrome. I'm going to go to the Chrome store. Now, because I'm streaming at the same time, I guess my internet's going a little bit slow and this computer's going a little bit slow. That is the joys. But the entire point is to show you what it's like sometimes. So here's our React developer tools. This allows us to see our React components inside of the source code. And then we're also going to install Redux Dev Tools. Whether or not we use Redux and when you should use Redux, etc., we'll talk about when we actually go to do some state management kind of things, which we'll cover in the future. Maybe on a more powerful machine. Depending on how this goes, I might go out and buy a new computer and have to do this part all over again. I'm not going to turn on sync because I'm just using a new profile here. I'll go switch back to my regular profile. But whenever you sign into Chrome, it brings over all of your extensions for you. So I couldn't actually show you this install process if I did it on my personal Google Chrome because it already installed all of these extensions for me. So let's check on our software here. Allegedly 34 minutes remaining. That's the life. Okay, so that's going to help us get the Git going. Another tool we're going to need is Visual Studio. Now, a lot of people, there's a lot of debate on which IDE you should use. Frankly, at this point in time, Visual Studio is the de facto standard. But what you should be doing, and this is from the more senior perspective, is everyone on your team should be using the same IDE with the same settings. If that's not possible, or if you have people who are unwilling to do that, make sure that their settings match exactly everyone else's, because you don't want is when you check in code and the line endings are different, or someone uses tabs and someone uses spaces. These are just going to cause you a headache. You want to avoid all of that. So I'm going to download Visual Studio Code. And then I have two extension links that I'll put in the description that will give us all of the lovely extensions we need. Now, I used to be a Sublime user, and then I was an Atom user, and then I moved on to using Visual Studio Code. I also used IntelliJ back when I was working with a Java backend, and it's really helpful for that. IntelliJ is meant for like Java development, and frankly, a lot of backend developers still use IntelliJ. But those licenses are expensive, and this is free. We're going to need some extensions as well to make our life easier. These are two extension packs, one for Angular, one for React. These are going to install several extensions into our Visual Studio Code. that are going to make our lives easier. So we've got some snippets, so things to help us just write the boilerplate content of React a lot faster. Same with JavaScript and CSS snippets. ESLint, which is the de facto linter for your code. We're going to pair that with Prettier as well, the code formatter. And what we can do in the future is take a set of ESLint rules and make Prettier enforce them and update them when we press save. That way, your linting is done every time you're doing it, so you get right in time feedback. This is also really great if you use TypeScript. TypeScript will also give you just-in-time feedback while you're developing, and that's one of the biggest things for it. We've got Bracket Colorizer, which is going to give us different colors for our brackets, our opening and closing, so you can easily click and find where your things are. Searching for various different pieces inside of your code. Get lens, which is going to show you on a line-by-line basis who committed that code, so you can easily reach out and be like, hey, what was up with this code? I'm trying to refactor it, or I need to know something. Code spell checker, so this is going to be really helpful. If you spelled color wrong a million times, or you spelled hierarchy wrong a million times, it's going to help you out. Npm Intellisense, so once you've done some node installs and you get some packages installed, this is going to help you with your import fees, your import fines, etc. Visual Studio IntelliCode. I haven't used this one. I'm excited to check it out. This is apparently an AI-assisted development that's going to help you with better autocomplete than what Visual Studio has built in. Then there's also an Angular one, all around the same vein. Actually, some of these are so much the same. This is actually going to give us a lot of editor settings that we're going to want to set up as well. But this also has more snippets for the code itself, as well as a Chrome debugger and an Edge debugger. I've not really used these much, but I do have them installed normally. The editor config you see above, ESLint, which we already have in there, the material icon theme, which is useful because it makes the icons a lot easier to find and see. NPM, which we already have, Peacock, which is a coloring library, Prettier, which we already have, and Winter is Coming, which is a popular theme. So let's install VS Code, and then we can install these extensions, because once we click on that, it's going to want to open VS Code, and it'll be a lot easier. Now, we're also going to need Node. However, I suggest using a Node version manager, because when you get more and more senior, you're probably going to be working across a couple of different projects, and the version of Node is very specific. So you're going to need to make sure that you have a correct installation in there. So we're going to use NVM. Now I've had projects where I've had to use both of these before. So that's why we need to use something like a Node version manager, so that your project can set your Node settings, and then you're able to go from there. I just realized my logo is over my face. We'll fix that for the next one. We'll move this over for now. So we're going to need to install NVM as well. Our command line tools are still going. So we are going to want to install and update NVM. So we're going to do this again over in our terminal. Failed to clone our repo. Oh, okay, this requires the developer tools still. So we're going to need to wait until the developer tools are finished. So let's go back to VS Code. Wow, why is this is taking a really long time. I feel like Big Sur has a little bit of a problem here, because there's the app right there, and it's still expanding it. And welcome to why everyone hates live coding, because there we go, it takes forever. Okay, so now we have Visual Studio Code. We're going to move it over into our applications folder, and then I'm going to move it into my doc. Then we're going to open that up. Visual Studio Code is you're going to want to install the command line tools as well for this, so that you can do stuff like code, period, and it'll open up the folder you have open in Terminal into your Visual Studio Code. Yes, we want to open this apple in your constant security badgering. But you could just turn it off. I know what I'm doing. My CPU is at 28%. This shouldn't be gagging so much. Okay, so we have Visual Studio Code in there. Now let's head on over and install all these extensions. I have Visual Studio Code. Open Visual Studio Code. And now down here you see that it's working away on its extensions. Okay, and let's move on to the Angular ones. I'm not going to bother with Vue or Ember or any of the other ones. Angular and React are the two most popular ones out there. And most of anything new that you're going to make is going to be in React. In future videos, we're going to talk about class-based React versus functional React. We're going to talk about, that's not what I got from this one, so let's make sure this one popped up as well. Functional React versus class-based React. No, I don't actually care about your README things. These developer tools are still chugging along. Honestly, one of the longest things that you have to do. So we got our dev tools, got our React dev tools, we got our two extensions, we got our visual code, and we're going to be working on getting Git set up. So let me head on over to GitHub, because we're going to need to generate SSH keys and stuff once we actually get Git installed. And this is actually where I'm going to switch over to my personal Chrome, because it has my password manager in it and saved sessions, etc. So the only other extensions I have on my personal one are ad blockers. I will, of note, when you're developing, turn your ad blockers off. There are a lot of third-party tools that you might be using, like Facebook Pixels and Google Analytics, that you actually need to make sure are working when you're working. So you're going to have to make sure your ad blocker is off. This computer cannot handle this. I think I'm going to have to upgrade my computer. This one is a little old. I've been working on my work computer for so long, but I didn't want to do personal things on it. So here we are with this little thing. Maybe I'll do Windows, then I can show you both. So let's get signed into GitHub. Okay, so we're going to head over to our profile and settings. And then we need our SSH and GPG keys. And we're going to click on generating SSH keys. We're going to follow these docs. I've honestly had to go through this so many times. I know that I don't have existing keys. You probably will have existing keys. It's easier to use the same key over and over again. If you're going to do multiple keys, make sure you know what you're doing. Wow, this is just like bogging my machine down, Xcode and Apple, and its constant thing with developer tools. Let's get the React extensions going in there. We've got our file icons. Okay, so something else that I'm going to do is I put all of my code in one spot on my machine. I go to my root drive here and I create a new folder called sites. Now, this is just a really old school default folder that always came with the Macs back in the day, because Macs used to come with, a local host that you could actually just put stuff in a folder and turn it on. So I'm going to put that there, and then here I'm going to open my sites folder. And so my home and then my sites folder. And we've got all these things installing. I'm going to go back to that link because it had all of the suggested editor settings. Now, what I would also suggest is that you should commit your editor settings as a file in your Git repo so that everyone is using the same settings. Remember, consistency is the most key thing to having a scalable team, because if everyone's writing code the same way and in the same language, using the same patterns, you can have people go back and forth between different projects with ease and between different tech stacks with ease. And all they have to do is run their NPM installs, like clone their projects, run their installs for the projects, and off they go, right? As long as everything is in that self-contained Git repo, you're good to go. So these are all a bunch of editor settings. We're going to indent. We're not going to use code lens, blinkers, etc. Let's see, we have our sites folder open. So Command-Shift-P pops open our thing here, and we're just going to open settings.json. That's where you paste most of your preferences for your editor. Now, once again, your local config can override these as well, and you should put these in your local config. This file should be blank. And some file settings. You can see it's working already. And some Json. So I've never tested these ones, so we're just going to put them in there and see what happens, right? And get rid of that trailing comma. So automatic already, I don't like this font family they're using, so we're going to get rid of that. Much better. Now we can close this, and if we actually just go to settings, we will have those as our defaults in our actual settings explorer. So you'll see these blue lines. These indicate things that have been changed from the defaults. Ooh, multi-cursor model file. So control command. So if I hold control and command at the same time, I can select multiple different lines. Word wrap. So now what I didn't see in here is the line length. So our go-tos. Line numbers, multi-cursor commands. Yeah, git lines couldn't find git. That's okay because we don't have it installed yet. That's what our command line toolers are doing. Another common thing that we do is set up when the line should break after how many characters. Got our material icon theme in there. Okay, let's pop open our extensions. Look at all these. Most of the stuff we don't have to do anything with. ESLint is in there. I'm just going to have that always in my bar down here. And we're going to make it prettier. Right, so this is our code length. So we're just going to modify this to 100. The reason for 100 is that this is the size of a line on GitHub's little preview. We don't want trailing commas. And we're not going to indent using tabs, and I know that's very controversial, but tabs are a different size on different machines. That's why we use spaces. But you will want to use the tab key so you don't have to constantly space. All of these IDEs have solved the tabs versus spaces by making the tab key insert spaces. Wow, right? TypeScript, we've got good in here. Cool, so it looks like everything here is set and ready to go. Hello, world. Plain text, 2 spaces for tabs, bam, tab, tab. Search engine, plain text, good, good, good. All right, so that is up and running and ready to go. Let's check on our developer tools. They have completely stalled. Welcome to working on a Mac and brand new operating systems. Yeah, this has frozen entirely. I'm going to pop up on our force quit. It has crashed hardcore. Okay, let's try this again. Terminal, git, install. Look, we're back to 51 seconds. There we go. It's moving again. Hooray! Now, this is normally what your new developer on your team is going to do all day. Because now I'm doing this on a brand new machine in my own home. You might be doing this on a machine that has numerous other things installed, numerous other things that you need to install because you're in a corporate environment. You might have to work with permissions to get things like Node allowed, or you might even have to get permissions to install things on your own machine as a developer, because sometimes people don't give developers admin privileges, which you absolutely need. You're constantly installing things and uninstalling things. Other things you need to consider for a brand new developer, you're going to want to have your documentation written down. I highly suggest having a checklist of these are the things that you're going to need to do. I'd highly suggest you give them, a nice leisurely way. Like, so this has been, like half an hour to actually get my machine up and ready to code, but you should literally give them a couple of days to do that because, we're doing this for a singular focus context here, but other places are going to have distractions. There are going to be other meetings that you need to do for, so don't rush your developers. You don't want to rush this process either, especially with NVM when we get there and Git when we get there. Those two things can end up gobbling up a lot of time with security on different types of machines. Now, I'm largely doing a lot of this so that I have a machine ready for coding exercises that a lot of interviews want you to do. This is largely so that I can point them here and be like, hey, this is how I walk through things and how I think through things. Because my GitHub has been private for so long that my GitHub has no history. My portfolio has been with internal products for the last few years that I can't actually tell you about the things I've developed in and put them out there on the internet and tell you that all I can tell you is that I've been working in Angular 1 and 2 hybrids. Then we moved that application to React. I can tell you that I've worked with React Native, React itself, that we've made Ionic applications, that we've made Angular applications that are mobile first and mobile responsive, ones that aren't mobile responsive. I have worked with Hybris. I have worked with AEM, large-scale e-commerce platforms, small microsites, Facebook applications. I even wrote ActionScript back in the day. That is where I started. And now I sit here waiting for all of these lovely progress bars to just go and gently push themselves along, push themselves along. Oh, it suggested a bitrate of 2,500 kilobits per second, and they bumped it. Okay, well, let's bump it back down then. Let's go with an even in between, shall we? With 3,000, how about that? I have all of the OBS stuff on this screen doing this, so you can look at me, hi! As we wait for this lovely progress bar, then I have this other one, like boom. I love production stuff. I went to school for multimedia design and production. So in addition to learning code, I also learned After Effects and Illustrator and Photoshop and UX design and photography. I did it all because we believe in what we call T-shaped learners, so a person that has a breadth of things in one area and a specialization in a specific one. And mine was front-end development. I wanted to do photography, but honestly, it doesn't pay as well as code does. And I actually love making things and creating things and organizing things. I actually used to organize a conference. So I used to go out, I had 300 people every year come here to Toronto, listen to talks, and the entire idea was everything you needed to know to be a senior developer, right? There wasn't a lot of stuff out there for how you actually make decisions. Why do you pick React over Angular? Why do you want to have consistency in your code? What makes code scalable? What makes teams scalable? And I'm trying to distill that down here into this bit that you need consistency and you need to go with what the schools are teaching, right? So right now, React is what kids are learning. I'm 32, but people who are coming fresh out of school, fresh out of high school even, and going into boot camps are learning React, and they're learning the freshest, newest way of React with hooks and functional stuff, which I've only just started looking into this year. So we're gonna together look through the difference between class and hook-based React stuff, because I finally learned a little bit about how they do use effect and use state, which is pretty cool. And my conference was brought in people from Google, brought in people from Facebook, the best of the best, Netflix, to talk you through the decisions that they've made and why they made them. And so you can figure out what works for your company, right? Doing your research on the technologies that are there, making sure you keep inside the problem that you're trying to solve. If you have a deadline looming, maybe switching from Angular to React is not a good idea because all of your developers already know Angular and you'll be able to iterate faster. And maybe that's not the time. But at the same time, it also could be the best time to switch because it's a net new project and it's very difficult to start a new language when it's not a greenfield build. Greenfield meaning that that comes from an old polluted land acronym of brownfield is a polluted piece of land, and you have to make it greenfield, which means you're ready to build something new on top of it, right? Anyways, so you have to make those decisions lightly. Now, between Angular and React, you've got I think the largest thing is that React involves a lot more third-party pieces in order to create a full-on single-page application. Like you're going to have to add in some event management. You're going to have to add in various different build systems, etc., to whatever build system that you choose. So if you're using Create React App, you're probably going to have to unpack it so that you have access to Webpack and you have access to be able to do custom settings. Whereas Angular, you can use Angular CLI, and the Angular CLI is really good at spinning up a project and you're ready to go. And you're ready to go to production right away, just turn on production mode. Whereas React is a little bit more work. But coding in React is a lot easier because it's much more verbose and readable than Angular code is. Because Angular code, you can get lost in when do you use a directive, when do you use a pipe, should you write your components as modules for pages and then have components that render into those spots, or should you use Angular in the React way where you've created a directive, which is essentially an Angular or a React component the same way, where you use your braces to insert it into your code, right? I'm just trying to kill time here while I wait for this lovely thing. What else can I tell you about myself and my experiences while we wait? I love board games. Yeah, if you want to know me, I love board games, I love video games. I have the PS5. I've been playing that like a lot. I tried streaming there. Streaming from my PS5 is definitely a lot faster than streaming from this machine. I wonder if I can somehow use that thing. Just put my computer through there, right? This by far is the largest piece that you'll have to do when you get a new machine. And the most annoying piece. Now, imagine if you also needed Xcode. So if you are going to be doing mobile development, even if it's mobile web, through React Native or Ionic, you're going to need Xcode. And that's going to take you forever. I highly suggest that if you have an IT department, get that preloaded on a dev's machine. That gobbles up like all day to download and install. And it's only 4 gigs. The problem here is that Apple's servers are so slow. I have a 500 asynchronous up and down connection here, and look how long this is taking. Anytime you download something from the App Store, same thing. Always takes forever. That's why I don't really use the App Store. Like I could have got Visual Studio Code from the App Store, but it takes 10 times longer than it does to go to Chrome and click on a download, right? So let's take a look at our Visual Studio then. If there's anything else that we can set up here. Visual Studio Code also has a really cool remote working thing, which is very popular for a lot of people right now during the pandemic. I haven't used it yet. I would be excited to use it. Wow, my machine is chugging. I might have to re-record this and do it all over again with a new machine. I mean, I have the budget to upgrade this thing. It's a little old. And hey, it's now freshly wiped and clean. I could probably sell it, but I wanted to change the theme. I don't remember how to do that. Good old splits. Oh yes, I love having the terminal built in here. I love using VS Code's terminal where I have one window. I don't have to tab over to my other terminal, right? Every time I'm trying to do something. We don't need to save our hello world file. Wow, my stream is like super delayed. It's like almost 5 minutes behind, it looks like. I spelled the environment wrong on my channel. Come on, Apple, you can do it. And my wrong. That's still wrong. There we go. Come on, Apple. What is going on? Okay. Well, I guess we will install Git and install npm on another day because I need to get this up and running before any of that happens. So thanks for tuning in. We will see you next time where we're going to install Git, we're going to install Node, and then we'll also create a React app just so that we can finish getting a local environment set up and running in React. And then we can also do an Angular CLI one at the same time. And then in the future after that, we'll probably look at doing API calls with React. I'll skip over Angular stuff until I absolutely have to, honestly. But yeah, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.